Austin, Texas, August 1st, 1966. The city awoke under a bright summer sun, unaware that a shadow already moved through its streets. Children played in backyards, office workers poured coffee, tourists strolled along the University of Texas campus. The ordinary sounds of life echoed freely, careless, unsuspecting. Charles Whitman had been preparing, not visibly, not for show. No one noticed the quiet intensity behind his ordinary exterior. At home, he moved with deliberate precision. His wife, unaware, chatted lightly in the kitchen. His mother, visiting, sipped tea. He smiled, polite, attentive, the picture of normalcy. Inside, however, a storm was building. Whitman had always felt pressure, anger he could not explain, thoughts he could not control, nights spent staring at ceilings, haunted by a mix of resentment, fear, and obsession. He wrote in journals, lines about rage, confusion, and most disturbingly, the urge to harm. He planned, methodically, carefully. Every detail mattered. Every step was calculated until it was almost invisible. By mid-morning, the ordinary day was about to fracture. Whitman left his apartment carrying not just weapons, but intention, knives, rifles, ammunition, concealed under a calm demeanor. He entered spaces no one expected a man to weaponize: quiet stairwells, public sidewalks, the university campus alive with students moving between lectures, laughing, talking, oblivious. No one saw him as a threat, because he looked ordinary, because he behaved ordinary, because evil sometimes wears no mask. He ascended the University of Texas Tower. From the observation deck, the city stretched out like a postcard: green lawns, brick buildings, busy streets, the hum of life. Whitman prepared, not in haste, but in chilling calm. And then, one by one, chaos fell from the sky. Shots rang out, fear rippled, confusion exploded. The city realized too late that nothing was safe. Not the classrooms, not the streets, not even the people milling carelessly on the sidewalks. By the time law enforcement arrived, the scale of the horror became clear. Students ducked behind pillars, professors shouted instructions, traffic stopped, panic spread faster than any rumor could. Whitman's control was total. The tragedy he unleashed would not only take lives, it would leave a city reeling and a nation forever reconsidering the meaning of security. Sometimes, the most terrifying acts are committed not in the dark, but in plain daylight, in full view of the world, and no one knows what to do until it is too late. The first shots echoed across the campus. Students froze. Professors screamed. The cafeteria emptied in seconds. Windows rattled. Cars skidded to a halt. The ordinary hum of life was replaced by chaos, sharp, sudden, terrifying. Charles Whitman moved with the quiet precision of a man who had rehearsed every step 1,000 times. Each pull of the trigger, each calculated pause, revealed the meticulous planning behind the horror. Inside the tower, he methodically scanned the grounds below. Groups of students huddled behind trees, faculty scrambled for cover, vehicles shifted, trying to escape the invisible reach of death from above. Whitman's rifle tracked movement. He measured angles, adjusted, waited. The terror was immediate, overwhelming, but it was also impersonal. There was no rage in his eyes, no thrill, only the cold focus of someone carrying out a plan that had been consuming him for weeks, months, years in fragmented thoughts, journals, and obsessions. Law enforcement received the first calls. Officers rushed toward the scene, radios crackling with confusion. Details were sketchy, chaotic. Some described gunfire, others described screams. None could grasp the scale until they saw it for themselves. They arrived at the tower entrance. The observation deck loomed above, a lone figure silhouetted against the summer sky. Ordinary in posture, ordinary in movement, but unmistakably deadly. On the ground, chaos mingled with courage. Students tried to help each other. Some called family, others hid silently, trying not to draw attention. The campus police coordinated as best they could, but they were ill-prepared for a sniper shooting from above. A shooter so methodical, so isolated, that conventional responses seemed futile. Whitman paused between shots. For a brief moment, he looked out across the city. He recorded in his mind the panic, the fear, the scattered humanity below. He noted who moved, who froze, who screamed. Then he returned to action. There was no hesitation, no emotion, only execution. Minutes stretched into hours. By the time authorities organized a plan to reach him, the death toll had already mounted. Students counted the fallen, first in disbelief, then with grim realization. The campus, once a symbol of learning and life, had become a stage for a tragedy no one had imagined possible. Whitman's journals, recovered later, revealed the mental calculus behind it all. He did not speak of hate, revenge, or political motives. He wrote of confusion, pressure, anger, of impulses he could not control, and of the terrifying certainty that he could act without interference. The first chapter of the tragedy ended not with resolution, but with disbelief. How could one man, with no obvious warning, bring a city to its knees in black light?
The city held its breath. Law enforcement had finally coordinated. Officers ascended the stairwells of the University of Texas Tower with rifles, handguns, and shields, their footsteps echoing through empty halls. Every creak of wood, every metallic clink of gear reminded them that the man they sought was watching from above, calculating, precise, unstoppable. Charles Whitman remained focused. He moved slowly, deliberately, scanning the campus with unwavering attention. Every figure below was a target, every movement assessed. Yet there was a strange stillness in him, a detachment that unnerved even those watching later footage and reading accounts. This was not rage. This was methodical, mechanical execution. Hours passed. Radio chatter filled the stairwells. Officers tried to coordinate. Civilians below ran for cover, ducked behind trees, scrambled into buildings. Emergency vehicles crowded the streets, sirens wailing, lights flashing, a chaotic response to a meticulously orchestrated attack. Whitman paused, almost as if considering the city below. He wrote notes in his journal. He mentioned personal frustrations, thoughts of violence, and an internal pressure that felt like it could explode at any moment. In those pages, later read by psychologists, was a man both ordinary and terrifying, a reminder that extraordinary evil can exist behind everyday appearances. Then, the final moments. Officers reached the observation deck. A brief exchange. Shots fired. Whitman was wounded, confused, cornered. The man who had terrorized an entire campus, the figure whose actions had rewritten the understanding of safety, was finally subdued. When the shooting ended, the silence was deafening. Bodies lay scattered. Students emerged from hiding, shocked, trembling. Emergency personnel rushed to treat the wounded. The campus, once alive with laughter and learning, had transformed into a scene of disbelief and grief. The aftermath revealed the scale of the tragedy. Multiple lives lost, dozens injured, a city traumatized. But it also revealed something else, the vulnerability of everyday life, that one man, with planning and determination, could penetrate spaces everyone assumed were safe. Charles Whitman's actions would forever alter the conversation around security, mental health, and crisis response. Policies changed, protocols were rewritten. Guards, emergency procedures, and awareness campaigns were born from the horror of that day. And yet, for those who survived, the images, sounds, and fear remained, memories of terror etched into their minds, reminding them that tragedy can strike anywhere, even under a bright summer sun, in the middle of a city, in a place presumed safe.
The sun rose the next day, but Austin was not the same. News crews flooded the city. Cameras captured the university campus from every angle. Reporters spoke of terror, disbelief, and the randomness of violence that had struck in broad daylight. Families huddled together. Students whispered among themselves, and the streets carried an uneasy quiet, the kind that lingers long after chaos ends. Authorities and psychologists scrambled to understand. How could one man ascend a tower, target civilians, and maintain control for hours without intervention? What drove him to such extremes? Why had warning signs gone unnoticed? Whitman's journals were dissected for answers, revealing confusion, frustration, mental instability, and a mind that had quietly fractured over years. Experts concluded he suffered from a combination of untreated mental illness, social isolation, and obsessive rage. Yet the precise why remained elusive. The city demanded change. Security policies were overhauled, emergency response protocols rewritten. Buildings designed with vulnerability in mind were fortified. Police forces studied the incident, training officers to respond to threats from above, from a distance, from angles previously dismissed as unlikely. Whitman's actions reshaped thinking about public safety, mental health awareness, and crisis management in ways that would ripple across the nation. Survivors struggled with lasting trauma. They replayed moments in their minds, the sound of shots echoing across campus, the fear of not knowing if help would arrive, the helplessness of hiding while chaos unfolded. Some left Austin. Others carried the memories for life, dedicating themselves to advocacy, counseling, and teaching. For many, the psychological scars outweighed the physical ones. The knowledge that a single individual could bring a city to its knees in daylight was a constant, haunting lesson. The tragedy also sparked national debate. Was society responsible for noticing warning signs? Could mental health support have prevented this? How should institutions balance freedom with security? Politicians, educators, and law enforcement wrestled with questions that remain relevant even decades later. Charles Whitman himself, after being killed by police at the observation deck, became both a warning and a case study. His name entered textbooks, documentaries, and true crime discussions, not as a figure of glory, but as a stark reminder of failure and vulnerability. In the end, the lesson was unavoidable. One individual, unnoticed, can alter countless lives. One tragedy can force an entire city, even a nation, to rethink safety, awareness, and the fragility of normalcy. And some scars, emotional, cultural, and societal, never fully heal.
Years passed. Austin rebuilt. The university campus returned to its rhythms. Students laughed, studied, and walked the same paths where terror had once struck. But the shadow of that August day never fully lifted. Charles Whitman's tragedy left a legacy far beyond the city. Security measures nationwide changed. Police departments developed protocols for active shooter situations. Observation towers, public buildings, and campuses were reconsidered for vulnerability. The idea that no place was entirely safe became a lesson ingrained in policy, training, and public awareness. Mental health awareness grew in response. Whitman's journals, examined by psychiatrists and researchers, highlighted warning signs missed and cries for help unheeded. Programs emerged to identify individuals struggling with violent impulses, isolation, and untreated mental illness. A conversation began that had previously been ignored. Survivors carried their memories with them for life. They told their stories, both in private and public, teaching others about fear, resilience, and the fragility of safety. Their courage in the face of unimaginable terror became part of the enduring story of that day. The nation remembered not just the violence, but the lessons. Emergency response planning, campus safety measures, and mental health protocols all bore the imprint of one man's actions. Lives were lost, but the tragedy forced a change that has saved countless others since. And yet, the personal cost remained. The victims and survivors could never fully reclaim the normalcy stolen from them. The city carried an invisible scar, a reminder that ordinary life can shift in a single, terrifying moment. Charles Whitman became a case study. Not a legend, not a hero, a warning. A stark illustration that even under the sunniest sky, in the most ordinary settings, tragedy can strike. The story of that day endures, a caution to notice, to prepare, and to remember that safety is never guaranteed and vigilance is never wasted.